Great Women of Ancient Egypt, the Myths of Cleopatra and Nefertiti. Today, I would like to tell you about the amazing fates of two great women whose names have forever remained in world history, Cleopatra and Nefertiti. These two queens of ancient Egypt left an indelible mark in the culture, politics, and art of their time, and their images still inspire artists, writers, and filmmakers. Each of them was a unique personality with a powerful charisma and indomitable spirit, which allowed them to become symbols of their era. Cleopatra VII Philopator, the last queen of Egypt from the Ptolemaic dynasty, one of the most famous women in history. The personality of this great ruler is shrouded in many myths and legends, and her name is firmly associated with the concepts of luxury, power, and intrigue. Cleopatra was not just a monarch, but a real cultural phenomenon, which became a source of inspiration for many generations of artists, writers, and filmmakers. Her image has gained immortality thanks to many works of art based on her life and work. However, despite this widespread popularity, many facts about Cleopatra remain little known or even distorted. In the minds of most people, she appears as a symbol of female beauty, cunning, and power, but the reality is much more complex and multifaceted. For example, few people know that Cleopatra was an outstanding politician and strategist who skillfully used her talents to protect the interests of his country in the face of formidable Roman conquerors. She was also a highly educated woman who knew several languages and had a deep interest in science and philosophy. One of the most interesting aspects of Cleopatra's personality is her ability to form alliances and use diplomatic skills to achieve her goals. The most famous examples of this are her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, two of the most influential men in Rome at the time. These relationships allowed her to strengthen Egypt's position in the complex geopolitical landscape of the Mediterranean, although they also ultimately led to her downfall. But Cleopatra cannot be viewed solely through the prism of her political achievements. She was also a significant cultural figure who influenced the development of literature, theater, and other arts. Many literary works, theatrical productions, and films were created under the impression of her image, giving it new shades and meanings. Thus, Cleopatra remains one of the most mysterious and attractive characters in world history. Her life and activities continue to arouse the interest of researchers and ordinary history buffs, and her legacy continues to live on in works of art and scientific works. To understand the real facts about Cleopatra means not only to learn more about the past, but also to understand more deeply the nature of human nature, strengths and weaknesses, ambition and passion that moved this great man. One of the most enduring myths about Cleopatra indeed claims that she was an extraordinarily beautiful woman. This myth is supported by numerous works of fiction, movies, and books that portray Cleopatra as a woman of dazzling good looks. However, the reality, judging by the surviving historical evidence, was different. On coins and portraits that have survived to this day, Cleopatra is represented with rather ordinary facial features. Her nose was a little long, and her face had strict, aristocratic lines. Her appearance did not conform to the classical canons of beauty of the time, which suggested softer and more symmetrical features. Even if we take into account that many artists could embellish the images of historical persons, it is unlikely that her appearance was as important a factor as is commonly believed. Cleopatra's real appeal likely lay in her personality, charisma, and intelligence. She was a highly educated woman who spoke several languages and was proficient in various sciences. Cleopatra was a skillful diplomat and political leader, which allowed her to effectively govern the state and maintain relationships with powerful Roman emperors. Her intelligence, knowledge, and ability to persuade played a much greater role in her influence than her physical attributes. Thus, Cleopatra was attractive not so much outwardly as inwardly. Her intelligence, wit, and ability to manipulate people made her a real force to be reckoned with. Her image was not created by nature, but by her own will and perseverance, making her a unique and unforgettable figure in history. Cleopatra is often portrayed in popular culture as a conniving seductress whose beauty and cunning led to the downfall of two great men, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. However, this interpretation of her role in history greatly oversimplifies the real complexity of her relationship with these Roman leaders. To better understand her motivation, we need to consider the context of her reign and the political realities of the time. Cleopatra ascended to the throne of Egypt at a time when her state was threatened from all sides. Egypt was a wealthy and strategically important region, but was under constant pressure from the growing influence of Rome. To maintain independence and stability in the state, Cleopatra needed the support of strong allies who could protect her country from external threats. Her relationship with Caesar and Antony developed not only on the basis of personal sympathy, but also as a strategic choice. Caesar, as a powerful Roman general, represented an important military resource for maintaining control over Egypt. Their alliance was mutually beneficial, with Caesar providing military protection and Cleopatra providing resources and financial support. After Caesar, Cleopatra found a new ally in the person of Mark Antony. Their relationship, though romantic, remained primarily political. Cleopatra continued to actively participate in negotiations and diplomacy, seeking to strengthen Egypt's position in the Mediterranean. In contrast to the stereotype of her as a woman who mesmerized men with her beauty, she actively participated in politics and made decisions that determined the future of her state. Both Caesar and Antony saw Cleopatra not only as a woman, but also as a strong political leader worth cooperating with. Their alliances with her were based on a pragmatic assessment of the benefits they could gain from cooperating with Egypt. Cleopatra used her ties with Roman leaders to strengthen Egypt's position by bringing stability and wealth to her country. Thus, Cleopatra played an active role in international politics, creating alliances that served the interests of her state. Her reputation as a woman who used her beauty and charm to manipulate men is based on romanticized notions of her life. In reality, she was an intelligent and calculating ruler whose actions were dictated by the need to protect and strengthen her state in a complex geopolitical context. There is a widespread myth that Cleopatra ended her life from the bite of a poisonous snake known as an aspid. This myth is based on numerous references in ancient literature and arts from ancient times. For example, Plutarch describes how Cleopatra used a poisonous snake to end her life by avoiding dishonorable captivity. This scene has become one of the most famous in mythology, and many works of art depict Cleopatra with an aspid coiling around her arm. However, historical evidence indicates that Cleopatra's method remains a matter of debate among researchers. There is speculation that instead of snake venom, she may have used various types of toxins that were available in ancient Egypt. For example, some scholars believe that Cleopatra may have used a combination of poisons, including cyanide and other substances, to avoid the painful process of slow poisoning. In addition, there are theories that Cleopatra may have utilized the services of a doctor or other professional to ensure a painless death. These theories are based on the assumption that she wanted to avoid a long and agonizing death, which could have occurred if one type of poison was used. Thus, although the myth of the snake-biting Cleopatra is popular and romanticized, the actual circumstances of her death remain a mystery. Historical sources do not provide enough information to determine the exact method. Researchers continue to study the subject, analyzing written documents and archaeological findings to shed light on this mysterious moment in history. Cleopatra was undoubtedly one of the most educated women of her time. Her intellectual abilities, her command of several languages, and her deep knowledge of philosophy, literature, and science set her apart from her contemporaries. Cleopatra was a well-rounded person, which helped her not only in government, but also in international relations. She was fluent in many languages, including Greek, Latin, Egyptian, and Arabic. This knowledge of languages was rare for women in ancient society, and it gave her the ability to communicate with people from different nations and cultures. This allowed Cleopatra to interact with different peoples and manage international affairs with greater efficiency. Cleopatra was also well versed in philosophy, literature, and science. Her understanding of philosophical ideas and scientific knowledge enabled her to make informed decisions and long-term strategies. Her education helped her become one of the most enlightened leaders of her time, which greatly increased her authority and respect among her subordinates and allies. Cleopatra's intellectual abilities played a key role in her reign. She skillfully negotiated, built diplomatic alliances, and protected the interests of her state. Her knowledge of politics and international law allowed her to maintain Egypt's independence in the face of constant threat from Rome. She was a skilled diplomat who knew how to compromise and reach favorable agreements. Overall, Cleopatra was a woman whose intelligence and education played an important role in her life and rule. Her talents enabled her to govern the state, maintain international contacts, and ensure the stability and well-being of Egypt. Although the Ptolemaic dynasty ceased to exist after Cleopatra's death, her legacy remained alive and significant in art and culture. Cleopatra's image continues to inspire artists, writers, poets, and filmmakers to create works dedicated to her life and love. Her name has become synonymous with beauty, power, and mystery. Now we will talk about another legendary woman of ancient Egypt. Long ago, in the distant past, lived a woman whose beauty and strength of spirit left an indelible mark in history. Her name was Nefertiti, which means beauty has come. She was the wife of Pharaoh Enetin, one of Egypt's most extraordinary rulers, and the mother of Tutankhamun, the famous boy king. But her story is full of mysteries and legends that still arouse interest among historians and archaeologists. There are still debates about the origin of Nefertiti. Some believe that she was the daughter of the Egyptian nobleman. Others claim that her roots go to the lands of Mitanni, an ancient state on the territory of modern Syria. There is also a version that she could be a relative of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, Enetin's father. According to one legend, Nefertiti was born in Egypt, but her mother was a foreigner, perhaps a princess from Mitanni. This explains her unusual facial features, which differed from traditional Egyptian standards of beauty. Her eyes are said to have been large and expressive, and her skin as light and smooth as marble. Enetin, the future pharaoh, was a young and ambitious heir to the throne. He differed from his predecessors not only in appearance, but also in outlook. Instead of the traditional worship of many gods, Enetin decided to introduce the cult of a single god, Aten, the solar disk. According to one version, Enetin and Nefertiti met in their youth. The young prince was charmed by the beauty and intelligence of the girl, and soon they were married. Their marriage became a symbol of a new era in the history of Egypt, the Amarna era, named after the capital founded by Enetin. Enetin and Nefertiti became the embodiment of change in the country. Pharaoh proclaimed Aten as the only god, forbidding the worship of other deities. This caused discontent among the priests and the people, who were accustomed to polytheism. But Nefertiti supported her husband, becoming his faithful companion and counselor. She took an active part in state affairs, often depicted next to her husband on bas-reliefs and statues. According to some sources, Nefertiti even had the title Queen of Upper and Lower Egypt, which gave her the right to rule the country on an equal footing with her husband. One of the main mysteries associated with Nefertiti is her sudden disappearance from historical records around the 12th year of Enetin's reign. There are many versions of what may have happened to the queen. Some researchers believe that Nefertiti died of illness or accident. Others suggest that she may have been exiled by political enemies. Still, another version says that Nefertiti took over the country under the name of Pharaoh Smenkhar in order to preserve the power of the dynasty. Another mysterious aspect of Nefertiti's life is the absence of her tomb. Despite numerous excavations and studies, scientists have never been able to find the final resting place of the queen. Some believe that her mummy was destroyed or lost, while others believe that it is still waiting to be discovered. There is a theory that Nefertiti could have been buried in the Valley of the Kings, next to other members of the royal family. Some archaeologists even speculate that her mummy may be in one of the undiscovered tombs or crypts. Nefertiti's beauty became legendary thanks to a famous bust found by German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt in 1912. This bust, made of limestone and covered with plaster, is considered one of the greatest masterpieces of ancient Egyptian art. It is said that the sculptor who created the bust was in love with Nefertiti and tried to convey her beauty and grace in the smallest details. The face of the queen looks lively and expressive, and her eyes, decorated with black eyeliner, seem filled with wisdom and power. The story of Nefertiti is an interweaving of facts and myths, reality and fantasy. She was not only a beautiful woman, but also a strong personality, able to influence the fate of the whole country. Her image continues to inspire artists, writers, and filmmakers around the world. Perhaps someday scientists will be able to solve all the mysteries associated with the life and death of this great queen. But for now, her story remains one of the most fascinating and mysterious pages in the annals of ancient Egypt.